Hi everyone, Nigel Saunders here. Today I'm going to be repotting my red maple forest. This forest is a bit of a Penjing. I have a fisherman, a little bridge over there, and this is supposed to be a stream area off to the right hand side, but it's overgrown with weeds and moss, and I want to redo this whole planting. It's planted in a metal aluminum kind of tub, and I want to get it into a better pot, get the forest cleaned up, and yeah, get it underway for this year. Here is a close-up look at the forest. So these trees were all grown from seeds. They're the native red maples that are common in North America. They're just starting to leaf out. You can see some of the leaves starting to show on the buds now. So I need to get this repotted. I have one tree in here that was a hardwood cutting, and it survived the winter and it's growing now, so that's good. That's the first time I've had success with a hardwood cutting on a maple tree. Before I get started on the repotting of this little forest, I'm going to give you a tour of the greenhouse here. It is spring in the glass greenhouse. Everything is starting to grow, and I'll show you a lot of updates to some of the trees that I've recently repotted. I'll start the tour in the left-hand corner here. So there's my royal oaks up top here, and they're leafing out and looking good so far. My Douglas fir here is also looking really good. The hemlock with the bear is also looking good. Beside the royal oaks, I have my wild thing, my Thuja occidentalis. It's greened up, it's lost its winter colors and is looking good. Here is my sugar maple forest. You can see the leaves coming out now and it's looking good. Some of them have their leaves out already and some are just emerging. Here's my silver maple forest. You can see it's leafed out. My witch's tree back here, root over rock, is looking good. It's greened up now. Over here is one of my repotted elms, and it's leafing out. This is the Penjing that Matt gave me. I recently pruned these trees up, and they've greened up. Down here is my pomegranate. It's looking good, and behind that is my grass planting. It's starting to green up and grow. Here's my silk tree. It's leafing out now. No activity on the downy birch here, but the buds are still looking good. Here is my crimson hawthorn. It's actually starting to grow. The branches are extending now. Beside that is my Korean maple. It's leafing out nicely, looking really nice. There's the little spruce down there, no activity on that yet. Here's my trident maple. It's leafed out now and looking good. Behind that is my mulberry tree. You can see it there, it's leafing out nicely. There's a few other trees behind that I think they're maples of some sort. Over here is my amber maple, and it's growing with a lot of vigor. Beside that is my rosemary that looks dead, and I'm going to give up on that. And here is my elephant Penjing with my Thuja occidentalis. It's greened up. It's probably going to grow soon. Down below, I have my jade forest, which is looking good. I've got some privet here that's growing with a lot of vigor. I've got a date palm there. Behind that is all the field maples, and they're starting to leaf out now. I've got my blue ash tree here. Not a lot of activity on that one yet. There is another maple behind it that's leafing out. My 60th birthday pine here. It's some of the buds are actually getting needles already, so it's starting to grow. And I've just got to grow it for another year and wait for a better root system up top here in the soil before I can repot it. Yeah, it's just a waiting game with this tree. Over here I've got my my, what is it called? Buckthorn. Or, yeah, European buckthorn. It's starting to leaf out. My boxwood forest is behind there. It's looking good. Not much activity yet. I have an oak tree here, the chickapin oak. The buds are swelling on it. And then over in the corner I have all my Douglas firs that I recently repotted. So we'll just wait and see what happens with those. Over in the right hand corner of the greenhouse, I've got my junipers. They're starting to grow with a lot of vigor. I've got my little bird's nest spruce back there. Not much activity on it yet. There's some buds swelling. Here's my Japanese graybark elm. It's leafing out. I recently repotted that one. There's my Volkswagen Penjing. Well, the trees are starting to grow with that. Here is my black locust. It's leafing out now. Beside that is a Mugo pine from one of the KW workshops. The candles are extending on that. Here's the two twin larches. The needles have come out. Not a lot of strong growth on them yet, but I think that'll pick up as the root system develops. But they're looking good. The apple tree is starting to leaf out. There's a lot of buds forming and coming. Beside those is my two paperbark birches, and they're leafing out. Beside that is my cotoneaster, and it's got flowers on it. It's looking really nice. Here's my Osage orange forest. There's a giraffe stuck in there. It shouldn't be there, and it's starting to leaf out. Beside that is my cherry tree. It's got buds forming on that. I recently repotted that, and that video will be coming. My Rosa Sharon here is leafing out nicely. Over here I have my witch's tree. It's greened up and doing well. Here is one of the mystery maples. It's a maple of some sort. Could be a silver maple maybe. It's leafing out. My pine, my Scots pine root over rock is doing well. Still green. Some of the candles are starting to extend now. I'm hoping to get back budding on it. That would be really nice. We'll see about that. My linden tree here. The buds are really pumped up now. It's ready to go. Here's my yew tree. It's still looking good after it's repotting. Down here is my Dawn redwood, and it's also leafing out. This is my catalpa here. I don't see much activity on it yet, but I do see the buds swelling. Behind that is a wisteria, and the buds are swelling on that. I've got a few miscellaneous seedlings in here, some apples and maples. Here's my Austrian pine. Still looking good. The candles are starting to extend on it. I repotted that recently. Beside the Austrian pine, I have my newly repotted whipcord cedar. We'll see how that does. And here is my Arakawa maples. Well, one tree, twin trunk. And the leaves are starting to come out on that. So it's looking good so far. There's some European plane trees back here. And my forsythia. And there's a few flowers on the forsythia down there. Not too many. Maybe there'll be more coming out later on. Down below the bench here I have my thujas, my forest planting here, my old growth tree back there. I've got a few native trees back there. What are they? I think that's the black maple, yes. The black maple and a white ash. Over here I've got an oak tree. Its buds are swelling. I've got another thuja from Connor down here that I will be repotting this year, root over rock, I hope. Here's my field maple. The buds are swelling on it, but no growth on it yet. There's a willow here that's growing. Here's my French lilac. Its buds are swelling and it'll be leafing out soon. Beside that is my Norway maple. It's doing quite well. The buds are swelling. Down here is a little elm tree. The buds are swelling on that, no activity yet. Over here is my Pyrenean oak from Dave from Blue Sky Bonsai. Buds are swelling on that. Here's my Russian olive down here. It's leafing out. Down here I have my little miniature ivy. Looks like it made it through the winter just fine. My giant sequoia trees, they're looking good. They're greening up really nicely. There's one in here that the top doesn't look good. I don't know if it's dead on top. There is some green growth down below on it, but yeah, that's the only one out of all the trees in the forest that doesn't look so hot. Behind that is my bald cypress, and it's got buds coming out on it. So it survived the winter, no problems. I've got my pawpaw trees back here. There's no activity on those yet. I've got my black pine. I've got a few miscellaneous cuttings. I think it's a hinoki cypress, some birch, and miscellaneous things in there. Yeah, so I've got these little miniature trees that are kind of weird looking. I forget the name of those. What are they? Are they dwarf hinoki cypress, I think? I've got my native nightshade vine here. Not much activity on it yet. Yeah, a few other things. I think lavender down here. There's a native oak behind it. My ginkgo that I repotted, its buds are turning green. It's looking good. Yeah, so overall, you know, everything's doing really well in the greenhouse here. I haven't had any drastic deaths or anything. I think everything survived the winter. So that's a tour of the greenhouse. So it's back to work on this native maple forest now. I'm going to start the work on the red maple forest, so I'll remove all my fisherman and my bridge here, which is starting to fall apart. And then I've got to get the forest out of the pot, so I'm not sure how easy that will be, but let's give it a try here. Oh, it's coming pretty easily. Just like that. So this is just an aluminum baking pan that I bolted some feet to the bottom of it to make kind of a pot. Yeah, it seemed to work okay. There is a stone in here I need to remove also. There might be a couple of stones. Yeah, that the fisherman was sitting on. So I like this Penjing. I like the idea of the forest and then kind of a stream or a lake here. So I'll try and recreate that. Lots of weeds. Oh, there's another stone in here. I tried picking all the weeds out, but I don't know, they just kept coming back. There's one of those crane fly larvae in there. Okay, I think I can get the root rake out now and start combing out the soil from the roots. So this arrangement of the trees isn't fixed or anything. When I come to replant it, I'll arrange the trees once again into something that looks good. There's another crane fly larva. I gave all the grubs to the chickens. You can see them enjoying them. Hello, everyone. Yeah, they're enjoying this beautiful day outside. I'll start raking out the soil now from the roots of the tree. So these trees are grown from a seed, and you can see they're starting to get a little more tree-like. They're not sticks and pots anymore. And, you know, they'll just continue to develop more and more into the future. Getting a little better every year, I hope. There. The drainage screen is removed, the big mat. Okay. You can see the trees are wiggling. I will be separating all the trees. I want to work on the root bases individually. One of the charms of a maple is the root base, the radial root base they get in nature. And I want to duplicate that in this Penjing. I don't want it just, you know, if you don't manage the roots, you get one big thick root on one side of the tree and the rest are kind of skinny and it doesn't look very miniature. But if you manage the root system, you can get some good results. It looks very convincing as a miniature tree. So I'm just working on separating all the trees, getting the roots combed out. I think, you know, they're all fairly loose now. I'm pretty close to being able to get them apart. It might take a little pulling, but I'll get them. Here comes one. Yeah, there's one tree out. Another tree. And the final two are separated. So I'm going to take all the trees to the washing station to clean the root system, clean up, and then we'll come back for the root pruning and the planting. Here are the trees in the water. So I think I'll start with my largest tree, getting that root base pruned up. So I'll just make sure it's washed here. It's looking pretty good. And we'll bring it back into the greenhouse and do the root pruning. Okay, here's a look at the root system. So you can see it's a good start. It's got some good stuff happening here. So if I look at the root plane, you know, I've got these roots are down at this level, and then I've got one that's kind of high up here, but there's not much else below it that could take its place. So I've got to keep that root up there. But there is one on top here I can prune away that's a little high. So I'll get rid of that one. You can see this part of the root goes underneath this other root, and I have a root off to the side here, so I'm going to prune that part of the root away just to avoid tangled roots there. This root goes off 90 degrees to the flow of the root base. This one's sticking up. I'll take that off. And then it's a little long here, so I'll prune it back at the tip. I'll be doing a profile prune later on too. So that's kind of solved some of the problems with the root base, with these roots. If I come around, there's a root here that crosses over everything. I'm going to remove that. Now here, you can see I have a big thick root down below, and I've got another root up here. I think, you know, with this root being high, this one's kind of in the middle, and then I've got some low roots. I've kind of, my root plane isn't exactly set really well, but I mean, again, you got to work with what you get. So I'll take this upper one off here, this one off. This divides from 1 into 3, so I'll take out the middle one. Come on. There. Yeah, I think I better keep both these roots. This one's not directly on top of the other one, so it should be okay. Just prune this part of it back. And then out this side, these aren't bad roots. Don't think, maybe prune that one away. I'll get Get rid of this one, little one here too. Now this root kind of divides from 1 into 3. I'd prefer 1 to 2, just like the branches on your tree. So here's the radial direction. I think this one, well, I've got a double root here. This one, if I prune it away, it kind of gives a big space with no roots here, so maybe I better keep it. Out of these, I think I prune off the lower one. Like that. Now I'm going to do a profile prune just to get rid of all these long roots sticking out, because I do have to plant these trees fairly close together in a forest, so I don't want huge spreading root bases. Otherwise the trees, you can't plant them close together. So that's getting it a little more compact. Come back a bit more there, a bit more here. There's one sticking up there. Sticking up there. Well, I don't know if I can do a whole lot more. There is one root from the bottom here I can remove, and this one also, just to try and get this root base a little flatter on the bottom. There's one crossing here I can get rid of. Yeah, I think that's got that tree pruned up, the roots. Anyway, if you know, when I go to fit the trees together, if I have to prune it back further, I can take a little more off, not a whole lot. This one root's kind of bothering me here. To take it off. Don't like the way it sticks up there. Okay, so I'm going to put this back in the water and start on tree number 2. Here is the root base on my second largest tree, and you can see it's very one-sided, which, if the tree was planted by itself, would be kind of a major defect in the root base. But when you're planting trees together in a forest, sometimes it allows you to get another tree right beside it that may have a one-sided root system also. So you can get your tree trunks close together without all the roots kind of intermeshing with each other. I'll do what I can to get this kind of underway, but you know, again, you work with what you get, and the only solution would be to air layer this or ground layer it to get a better root system, but I'm just going to keep pruning it. So this root comes off radially and then it turns back on a strange direction. I do have a couple of roots out here that are radial, so I'm going to remove this part. Just like that. So that comes off, and that can probably get cleaned up better in the future, but for now I'm just going to leave a stub. I'll prune back a few of these long roots here. I've got a root here, so here is the radial direction. This one's starting to get a bit far off, and so I'll prune it back and maybe even remove it. I think so. I have another root below, so I'll just take that right off like that. This one's getting long. I'll take it back. This part of the root system sticking up, I'll take that off, and this one also. here, just to try and keep the roots kind of flowing down into the soil. There's one here crossing underneath another root. I'll take that one off. And maybe this part too. Cut it back. Sticking up there, sticking up here. Cut these ones back. Now, this one's fairly long. I can cut it back. It's quite vigorous too. Yeah, so that's kind of getting down there as much as I can do on this root base. It's not too bad. I have seen worse, that's for sure. And it's funny, you know, both trees were started from seeds, and the other one had a fairly nice radial root base, and this one's not quite as nice. But, you know, maybe in the future it'll develop more roots on that other side, and it'll become more radial. Yeah, so that's tree number 2. The root system ready to plant, so I'll stick that in the water, and we'll start on the 3rd tree. Here is the root system on the 3rd largest tree. Wow. It's a little wilder than the other ones. So let's have a look at it. There's a couple of roots here growing straight down. I want to get rid of this one. And the part that grows down here I'll get rid of. And then this part of the root comes out radially, and then it kind of doesn't flow. It goes 90 degrees. So I have 2 choices. I can cut it back hard and hope something grows in the right direction. I'll cut it back to here. Let's see what happens there before I remove it totally. There's a root. There's not much on this side, but there are some fine roots here. But not, you know, real strong ones, so I'll just leave those ones be. This one though, again, you know, I have a root up high here, medium, and low. So I think this highest one has to come off. So that's coming off. That helps even out the root plane a bit. Taking some soil out here. Then I've got a huge root. You can see it's come out here, hit the edge of the pod, grow in another direction. So I'm going to cut it back fairly hard because it's really vigorous. Back to here. Taking that whole root off. I'm going to do a profile prune just to get rid of all these long ones sticking out. And some of the ones growing down from the bottom, get rid of those too. So you can see it's getting better, the root base. There's one growing up here. This one's a problem, it's growing up, I gotta get rid of that. It's kind of growing a funny direction. Just prune the tip off of it. That back. These ones got to be pruned back a bit more. And I think that's about it. I think that's, you know, not a bad looking root system. It's not perfect, that's for sure. There's nothing growing out this side, but you know, maybe that other one-sided root system, I can put these two trees together to get them close together. Yeah, so this one goes back in the water, and we'll prune up the last tree, tree number 4. Here is the last tree, tree number 4. So again, a fairly one-sided root system. I'll start, there's a root kind of sticking up here. I'll get rid of that one. Those are roots from weeds there. And let's see. Here, I've got a root coming out, which isn't quite radial. And then I think it's been pruned, and then I've got a root coming 90 degrees each side of it. So it's not very good looking. I do have a root out the bottom, which is good. So I'm going to take this part off. And I'm going to remove this one totally. It's just too strange, it doesn't flow. This one, here's my radial direction, and these ones are getting kind of far off radial. And I have better roots below that are a little more radial. And this one is too far off radial, I'll get rid of that one. I'll prune all these long roots back. Like that. And then I'll flatten it out on the bottom a bit. Like that. This one's still a little long here. And I'm not sure I can do a whole lot more. I could take this one off. There's a better root beside it there. This one's a little more flowing. There's one that kind of goes straight down here. I don't think they'll ever use that as a surface root, so I'm going to take that off. And maybe this one too. It's just growing down too far. A few roots sticking up here, I'll prune back. And I think that's it. That's all I can do with that root system. Again, very one-sided, but hopefully, you know, in the future something will grow out this direction. So that is the trees root pruned. So next I got to think about a pot for this. I'm not going to put it back in the baking pan. I'm going to upgrade the trees to a better pot, if I can find one. So I'll have a look and see what pot I have that's suitable for this little Penjing. I have found a pot. It's a Chinese pot. It's a, you know, not a real high quality pot, but it's about the same size as the aluminum baking pan. It's just a little bit smaller. But I think that'd be good because this Penjing is, you know, Chinese inspired. So to put it in this Chinese pot would be very suitable. So let's do it. Let's plant my Chinese inspired Penjing in a authentic Chinese pot. So this pot has a very drippy glaze. You can see it's very thick, and you can see it how it drips down here. There's some chips where it's chipped away. The other side of the pot it's not as drippy. It comes over the foot here. It's nice too, but I think this side of the pot's also very warped. The whole pot is kind of warped. Like I said, it's not a super high quality pot, these. Well, actually, it's a very low quality pot. But I think they're cool. They have this beautiful green crackled glaze on it. And this is a very old pot. This is probably 30, 40 years old, at least. So, yeah, it's a pretty cool pot, I think. It's got tons of patina and character to it. So I think I'll make this the front of the pot, showing all that drippy glaze. And yeah, I think I'll get my drainage screen in here and a base layer of soil and get planting these trees. This pot also only has one drainage hole in it, which isn't a lot, but this clay is very porous. It absorbs moisture. It's not like a high-fired stoneware pot, so it wicks moisture out of the actual clay. So I think it'll be really good for the maples. I'm going to use soil from the Bonsai supply. It's a really good soil mix. So here I go. I'll get a base layer of soil in the pot. I've got my drainage screen there. It's a very shallow pot, this, so I can't put a whole lot of soil in here. Just a base layer to cover the bottom of the pot, and then the trees will sit on top of that. So again, I'll have like a land water Penjing. So I'll build up this side a little more, where I'm going to plant the trees. Like that. And then I better get out the trees and kind of lay them out in the pot.